my friends, and welcome to Embracing What is Real. I'm your host, Helane Lipson. Embracing What is Real is the forum to explore the nature of reality and the impact our current belief systems have on our lives. All of our deep-rooted old beliefs are what many of us use to judge ourselves and our actions. Our current belief systems impact every single choice we make. So when we feed our spirit with new, empowering ideas about the meaning of life, the meaning of our lives change. Our very special guest today is Jim Self. Jim is an international teacher, speaker, and leader in the field of spiritual development. He's also the author of 2 books, Spirit Matters, Down to Earth, Tools for a Spirited Life, and a new book, What Do You Mean the Third Dimension is Going Away? He co-wrote both of these books with Roxanne Burnett. Now, Jim walks with a foot in both worlds. At the age of 26, Jim was elected to his first of 2 terms to the San Jose, California City Council and later became vice mayor. Before completing his second term, he was asked by President Jimmy Carter to be an advisor and the director of governmental operations for the Department of Energy. As an entrepreneur, he successfully built and sold 2 corporations and is the founder and current board chairman of a third. Now, at the same time, Jim has had the ability since childhood to recall his experiences within the sleep state. Over the last 20 years, this awareness has expanded into relationships with the archangels, ascended masters, and teachers of light. The tools and information presented in the program Mastering Alchemy is a co-creation of these relationships. Jim has been leading seminars on personal energy management and the tools of mastering alchemy for almost 30 years. He offers a wealth of free information and material on his website, and details of his free online teleclasses, webinars, and much, much more can be found at www.masteringalchemy.com. He's here with us today. I am so happy to welcome Jim Self. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Helene. Nice to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to be talking to you. I actually found you on the Awakening Zone Network. You have an amazing program called Conversations With, and I've heard you speak to so many people. You've spoken to Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Jonathan Goldman, so many more. So thank you so much for your commitment to your mission.
Oh, thanks. My pleasure. I have a good time at this.
So it's very interesting. I mentioned in the intro to the program that as an adult, you've walked with a foot in both worlds, from vice mayor of San Jose, California City Council to advisor and director of governmental operations for the U.S. Department of Energy to a successful entrepreneur who has built and sold 2 corporations. And at the same time, you were simultaneously leading seminars, healing, teaching, clairvoyance, personal energy management courses, and developing relationships with ascended masters and teachers of light with whom you've created your Mastering Alchemy programs. I mean, how difficult was it for you to juggle 2 such seemingly different lives?
Well, in one way, it's not that difficult at all, because for me, that's been my whole life. And a lot of people, when you're born, you come into the body fully engaged in your spiritual space, and then the mom, dad, teacher, minister of life say, "Do it my way. I have a better idea of how to do this than you do." And as little ones, we say, "Okay." And then we begin to shut down those intuitive skills, those spiritual alignments, that consciousness where we are driven by the compass in the heart. And so you begin to forget and turn away and go live their 3-dimensional life. I didn't turn all that off, and I didn't understand that at the time, but I now understand it very clearly. And so, and many people don't turn it all the way off. They have experiences, they see things, they know things, they have feelings about things, and to a great extent, many of the people who don't turn off their spiritual alignment are the ones who withdraw or are very sensitive spirits in a body, and they have a different kind of cadence to walk to and don't fit in that third dimensional life, and unfortunately many times become hiders. But in my reality, I kind of embraced it in both ways. It was strange sometimes, but for the most part, that ability to have a smooth transition between using the skills of clairvoyance, reading energy, understanding emotions, or at least being able to move around in the emotions of other people, uh, didn't knock me as off balance as it knocked others off. And then upon later on, it became a skill set that was very valuable in creating success in both worlds.
I can completely relate to what you're saying. Um, and that's very interesting. Now, can you briefly explain what mastering alchemy is and what your programs offer?
Sure. I've been teaching clairvoyance and those type of intuitive skills uh, because that's what I know for a long time, and beginning to understand how energy works and how to manage energy, and that was being taught for quite some time, all through the 80s and the 90s. That was a clear focus of mine. But in about the year 2001, I started becoming more and more conscious of my relationships with, let's call them beings of light, the archangels, the ascended masters, the lords of light, these just grand beings, very conscious. And the shorter story of this, at one point, I had a conversation with a great being named Metatron. And Metatron has never left in my reality. But Metatron said, we are entering a period of time that has been anticipated and hoped for a long time. And we believe that there is a pathway that can be walked that has never ever been walked before, and never ever, from Metatron's point of view, it was really big, long time. And we believe two things can be accomplished in this path. Those that walk it can be of great service to others. In the context, there will be a point in time where opening up this fifth dimensional consciousness, so all of third dimensional consciousness, can eventually move into a higher, quieter, calmer, more enjoyable state of being. And simultaneously, your own personal growth, your own personal evolution, your own personal ascension can be accomplished. Would you like to play with us? You don't really say, well, I don't know, let me think about it and get back to you. So, of course, and out of that, a series of 3 classes, in simple terms, came about. One teaching how to manage your energy field, how to turn this personal power back on and manage it in such a way that it was very nurturing and supportive and uplifting. And then a second program, which is beginning to create structure and awareness that allows you to step out of that third dimension without getting caught up in the emotions and the push and the shove of the game. And particularly in 2001, there's been a very rapid acceleration leading into December of 2012, which we can talk about. Much happened at that point. And so many of these people began to create these means of knowing themselves and managing themselves and not getting caught up in the noise of the theater all around them, beginning to distinguish between who I am and Shakespeare's theater that surrounds me. And that program built, and then it turned into, it was actually very interesting because we would be done, and people say, well, what's next? You can't be done. I mean, this is too good. And so it just kept evolving and evolving to the point where it is now, where literally people are very conscious in these higher dimensional realms and very focused on turning this physical body into light and being successful at it.
So you just called the year 2012, of course, the year of transition from, as you were explaining it. And you said in the past that we were all going to be quite different by the time that we entered 2013. So here we are. It's 2013. What is happening with us now?
Well, I'll give you the very simple word, and then let's back out of that. You've been given your freedom. And freedom is a very interesting word because in real terms, it's something you've never had or understood, and particularly in this lifetime. I'm not talking about man-made laws and freedom. I'm talking about your spiritual alignment to be able to be the creator being that you are. So let me back out of this a little bit. And this is the focus of the book. What do you mean the third dimension is going away? So if I was to take a minute and just explain what a dimension is and what you are experiencing and how this is unfolding. You see, a dimension is not a place. It is not another world. It is a, let's keep it very simple and call it a box for a moment. And there's a fourth dimensional box, a fifth dimensional box. But in each one of the boxes, there are structures and rules and configurations that make that box up. And in the third dimensional box, let me say, you live in or have lived in this third and fourth dimensional box very simultaneously. So the third dimensional box is very constructed in, it's conditional. It's very rigid. It operates in words like always and never. So always and never. It is very reactionary, third dimension. It is conditional. It operates in a time construction that we all know and most believe is fixed, but time is an application. It is not a fixed constant. And so we believe time to be past, present, future, and then you die. And that's all there is to it. That's how it works. Well, in fact, that's not how it works at all. But it is a belief system and it is a concept. So what happens, though, in the third dimension is we have come to understand words like right and wrong and good and bad and should and shouldn't. We have relationships in terms of time where we basically say, I don't like what happened to me. I hope it doesn't happen to me in the future. Or they told me if I would, then therefore I will someday be successful, or whatever it is. If you pause and really look at your life and realize how much worry we create and live in, how much fear we create and live in, based on, I hope that thing that happened to me once upon a time doesn't happen to me again. And so the way the time construct operates in your consciousness is we are constantly looking into our past and hoping that thing doesn't happen again in our future. And in real terms, we live, I'm going to say 99% of the time, third dimension, in past and future. There is a little sliver of present time. And usually when you are in third dimensional present time, you're really going, oh my God, this wasn't supposed to be happening. And you're very much in present time, but you are in reaction. And so, does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Okay. It does. So, it's interesting.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking, people are also saying, and I feel like this myself as far as time is concerned, that it does seem to be speeding up or going faster, or are we losing our memory, or are we just imagining this, or are these things really happening to us?
Oh, you must have read the book. So, yes, you are losing your memory and you are So I say this sometimes in lectures to people. How many of you notice that time is going faster? Well, it used to be 5, 7 years ago, numbers of people would raise their hand, but some people would kind of look at like, what are you talking about? Now it's not even, 4-year-olds raise their hands. It's not even a consideration. But time is not going faster. In fact, time is collapsing into a singular moment. And very much that's the fourth, fifth dimension. But what happens is, think about it this way. Let's say in your habits, you used to walk from point A to point B, and it would take you 5 minutes, and you'd do that every day. And it was just ingrained into your system. And then what happens is, as time collapses, now in order for you to get to point B, you don't have 5 minutes anymore, you only have 4 minutes. And so now in order to get there, it feels like you're running faster, you're walking faster. I have to hurry up to accomplish the same thing that I had a moment ago. And it continues to collapse, and it has now collapsed, but I'll get there in a moment. So as time collapses and it feels like it's going faster, I'd ask a second question. Do you have a sense that you have more on your plate today than you did yesterday? And everybody would groan and raise their hand again. And then I'd ask the third question, which was, how many of you have a sense you're losing your memory? And everybody would laugh, but a great portion of the people would raise their hand. And over the years, it's gotten to be virtually everybody. And it's not Alzheimer's and dementia. It's simply a very fundamental thing that has occurring. In this shift into this fifth dimensional consciousness of gratitude and appreciation and well-being, and I'll define that in a moment, you can't take your baggage with you on this journey. It's just not possible. You can't take your baggage. So you have to leave behind that aspect of you who you are not. Now, this is where the game begins to be very interesting, because a great part of your experience in life has been gifted to you by others, the mom, dad, teacher, minister, the peers, the best friends, the ones who don't like you. All of those people have given you these gifts, and you have provided gifts to others also in your judgments, in your reactions, in your resentments, and those type of words. So somebody looks at you, Helene, and they say, well, you're not a very nice person, or you're never going to succeed, you're not smart, you're not attractive, you're not going to ever make anything of yourself. When somebody says that to each of us as an individual, what we do is we go into a very specific experience. We simply accept the gift many, many times, and then we begin to think about it. And here is a very, very important concept, but plays out very strongly in how you are going to step out of everything that you thought was true and into a reality that is very aligned with the compass, the internal guidance system. See, first of all, you cannot be not okay. It's impossible to be not okay. But have you ever seen those? So here, the thought is, thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. Let me see if I can make sense of that. You ever seen those big junkyard cranes that pick up buses and trucks and, they scrap steel? What that effectively is a block of steel with magnetic properties. It's not a magnet. But when you wrap an electrical wire around it one time and plug it into the wall, it creates a low-level magnetic field. If you wrap that wire 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, you create a tremendous electromagnetic field that picks up buses and trucks. So here's how this plays out in your personality, in your experience. So you come down the street and you say to me, Jim, you have a funny nose, whatever the insult is. What I do is I'm in my space and I'm in ease. I'm in my spiritual space. I'm walking along the nice spring day. I'm happy, and somebody insults me. And the first action is, you're aware of having a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual body structure. In that spiritual space, I drop out of my spiritual space into my mental process and I say, why did they say that? Then I immediately drop into my emotional space and I start to say, no, this doesn't feel very good. And then I take that, this doesn't feel very good, and I begin to wrap my thoughts around it. Why'd they say that? Am I not that attractive? I'm not that good. Maybe I'm never going to succeed and not be acceptable, etc., etc. How many times in your life have you had a thought that somebody else has handed you, that you have accepted, and then argued with, and then didn't like it, and then couldn't figure out what to do with it, and you're walking around not okay? In that case, not okay is like wearing a blouse that's 3 times too small, or a pair of shoes that are the wrong size. But what we do is we never take that blouse or those pairs of shoes off for the most part. And if you pay attention to your life and the life of others, you have seen where somebody has been embarrassed or humiliated or made fun of or judged or condemned. And in that one moment when somebody said, you're not okay, and they accepted it, and many times it took one moment, their whole life took on a different direction. And so what happens is we have collected the not okays. And we try to justify ourselves and we try to present ourselves. And how many times have people had the mom, dad, teacher, minister who said, you know, you're not going to be an artist, you're going to be a lawyer and a doctor, and this is what you will do. But your makeup was never to be the doctor or the lawyer. And so you begin to live a life that is structured by others' opinions, beliefs, and judgments that have nothing to do with you at all, third dimension, and you begin to live them. And so that third dimensional box is full of rights and wrongs and good and bads and should and shouldn'ts. But when you step into that fourth dimensional box, which you do live in simultaneously, but don't spend a lot of time in a person. In the fourth dimension, there's a box, there's just a couple little structures to it. One is present time. You exist in present time. Present time, you don't have reaction, as in third dimension, you have choice. And so I may be presented with something from my past and I may not like it, but I may choose to not engage with it. And then you have a very, very important word, paradox. And paradox simply means what was true yesterday, a moment ago, is no longer true, and what was false a moment ago may no longer be false. So see, when you're in third grade and somebody steals from you, and the response is, they're always going to be a bad person. She's never going to be a nice person. 20 years later, in the third dimension, when you run into that person at a restaurant somewhere, and they say, hi, remember me? And you go, oh yeah, I remember you. But the you that you're looking at in front of you is the one 20 years ago. And so you never view this person in a way in reactionary third dimension, in a way that says, oh, you've grown up, you're 20 years older. What are you doing with your life? How wonderful are you? See, fourth dimension allows you to do that. But third dimension condemns, judges, resents.
Wow, Jim, that was just a brilliant explanation. And I hear you when you're saying we can't take this baggage with us on this journey. And it also explains why I'm feeling and people are saying that stuff that they thought that they already dealt with is suddenly resurfacing. And I think that this also explains that.
It explains it very clearly. Let me just expand on it right here so that you have a better understanding of this. You see, in 2012, in December, starting in 12/12/12, and then again on 12/21, that was a very empowering week. On 12/12, to keep it very simple, and I'll be happy to give you more information, that third dimensional box was removed. Simply, the door on the third dimension was removed. And when we did our part in removing that, Metatron said, there will never be another child from this moment forward born into that third dimensional construct. And so you will still continue to drive the same road, even though there's a brand new freeway sitting right next to it. You'll never see the freeway because you are so locked into your habits. Now, Metatron didn't say that, I'm saying that. So what happens is you can't take your baggage with you on this journey. And this is where, when that electromagnetic field has been removed, all of those thoughts, I'm not okay, I'm not attractive. Now think about it. Somebody says you're not attractive, and you grab a hold of it and you hang on to it. And then somebody else says you're never going to succeed, and you grab a hold of it. It begins to create a pattern in your structure. And then you don't like it, so you kind of put it over here on the side in a place called denial. And that doesn't really work because it still jumps up. And so you kind of say, let me make a deal with you. The thought that says I'm not attractive, the thought that says I'll never succeed. Let me make a deal with you. I'm going to put you back here behind me in this place called unconsciousness. And I'll make a deal. I'll never go anywhere near those who said that or those thoughts again if you never jump out and bite me in the butt again. You say, hi, how are you doing? And they say, oh, I'm okay. Well, somehow I'm okay and I'm okay don't match up. And you, being clairvoyant, you look at people, you see people, and there's a mismatch between their words and their emotional state of well-being. What they've done is they've simply accepted all of this stuff, put it back there, and then tried to live their life in opposition to who they are. And it never feels very good. So your point about people thought they dealt with stuff, they have. They've gone to therapy. They've done all kinds of things. But they have not necessarily dealt with that set of statements or that set of constructs that are sitting in their unconsciousness. But because you can't take your baggage with you, it now is like old paint peeling off the house. And as it's peeling away, the majority of it, you're not even noticing. Because misery is optional. You don't have to go through that emotional body to understand yourself like we have for 40 years in therapy and different kinds of applications. Now that energy begins to leave. And if you can begin to find aspects of this higher fourth dimension and begin to enter that fifth dimension where there is joy and well-being and appreciation and vitality, admiration, gratitude, this is who you are. But how often do we roll around in those kind of words, live those words? As you begin to hold yourself in a higher state of well-being, and you begin to understand the energetic tools that allow you to be who you are. And I'll give you a couple examples in a moment. But when you begin to operate in this space of well-being, and these tools are functioning as they're designed in your construct, many of these things like old divorces and embarrassments and your resentments and judgments, they simply slip away. They dissolve because they have no value. They have no foundation. That third dimension, that rigid box of conditionality is no longer in play. And with it not in play, you have freedom in a way that you've never experienced. And then when 1221 came, an enormous explosion of light came into consciousness that is organized and fluid and flexible and mobile and has no edges on it that say you're not okay. And so we're in this transition, and it's astonishing as to what's happening.
You know, I just want to backtrack a minute, Jim, because we hear a lot of talk about ascension, essentially what we're talking about today, but few people really understand what that means or how it's coming about or how specifically it's going to change things for us individually and collectively. So can you make sense of this for us?
Well, let's see how you can hear this. um, there's something that is involved in this third dimensional aspect of you, this physiology of you, this denseness of who we are as a physical body. And it's the mental processes that we use. The mental and the emotional body were never meant to be two different bodies. In these higher realms, as you begin to remerge into this ascension evolution question you're asking, that mental and emotional body will become one very fluid body. But that aspect of the mental body, the rational mind, has two purposes. One is to keep you safe, and the other is to have you fit in. And it is structured in a way that provides great service in many ways, but it's been overworked and given more responsibility and the wrong responsibilities. And so it doubts, it fears, it challenges. And so, but in this spiritual space that you are, everything is done with ease and flow, with respect and courtesy, those type of words. So this rational mind is one of the most challenging aspects of a person's evolution, stepping into who they are in a multidimensional way. And so that rational mind, every time you begin to go out of it, or often when you begin to go out of it and begin to explore some of these spiritual internal alignments, it says, oh, are you sure you want to go over there? This doesn't look like something we're familiar with. It doesn't have you fit in. You're beginning to step out of the box. Something's wrong here. And it gets very resistive, and as many of you who are listening know. So that process is a very big challenge to you. One of the reasons that we created the Mastering Alchemy work was to give you a way to work around the rational mind. Because as you start to step into these higher multidimensional levels, the rational mind has no play. It has no part of you. As you start to begin to understand yourself in that natural alignment, that internal compass, you begin to know, and you all know this place, that place where the decision is appropriate or not. Somebody says, let's go jump off the cliff, and everybody says, yeah, and you go, I don't think so. This doesn't really feel aligned. When you begin to get back into that heart space, you start to find that there is, and now because the third dimension structure, the box, is no longer there, your ability to begin to know yourself starts to increase. And, here, let me just give you a concept that is very important. So if I said to you, do you know what certainty is? What many people do is they say, oh yeah, I've been certain. But that's an intellectual response. But if I said to you, take a breath and close your eyes, and would you feel certain? And in that space, your shoulders go back, your body your head goes up, you take a little deeper breath, and there's a sense of feeling, certainty. That certainty is not challengeable. And if I said to you, let's just shift it to capable, would you feel capable? And play with me. We're not going anywhere. We're just playing. And you allow yourself to be capable. And then you allow yourself to begin to be senior, not as in old, but as this is who I am. And there's a presence that begins to be conscious to you. You begin to experience yourself in a much different space. As you begin to play with those tools, you start to make better decisions based on who you are. As that begins to happen, that rational mind begins to be managed, and you begin to take charge of the ego, which is a whole nother topic. The egos have a very bad rap. But you start to find that you can choose different feelings. See, in these higher dimensions, words like beauty and well-being and kindness and respect and dignity and appreciation are a state of being, not a fleeting, soft word that gets overrun because I have to go to work and I'm under a deadline. You start to find that you step into an aspect of yourself where you begin to know yourself. It takes a little bit, let me say it this way, some assembly required. This is not a free ride. And so this unfolding into this fifth dimensional space may take 50 years for some. For others, it is virtually a breath away. But as you begin to hold your energetic field intact, you begin to observe and then choose rather than shoot, ready, aim at your experiences, and then have to unravel yourself from what you just created because you didn't pay attention. You start to create a state of being that allows you to choose different options, choose different experiences. As that happens, and with a little bit of information, that mental emotional body comes together. You clear many of that baggage that we talked about at the beginning. Who I am not simply falls away. And you start to find that you step into this spiritual space where you begin to align with the soul, because you are the soul, but not where you're sitting listening to me. That's a little tiny piece. There is a place where there's great well-being and mastery, maturity in a space that the soul holds. But as you begin to integrate that into the heart, you begin to think with the heart and act from the wisdom of the soul. As that all happens, you begin to expand your consciousness into this unified field. Most who understand that word unified field understand it as an intellectual concept, not a feeling or an actual experience. So as you begin to raise the light frequencies and the vibration within the body, you begin to see a way of life that's very different than that third dimensional structure and habits that you have experienced. And it will lead you to a place where the ability to turn the physical body into light, first it will crystallize into a very harmonic wiring system, if you would, like a crystal. And then it begins to amplify in light, and the density of the carbon element in the body simply is compressed into light. Just like a piece of coal is structured into a diamond, the light compression is such that this crystalline structure comes about. But from there you begin to realize how much of the creator you are, consciously and fully aware of yourself. That's an evolution. The word ascension is, yes, it's an ascension, but think about it as an evolution of yourself and growing of yourself into a place where respect and kindness and consideration are far more co-creation, or far more the way of life than the push and shove and competition that you have understood all your life.
That was such a brilliant explanation of ascension. I mean, very intense, but I like when you said some assembly required. This is not a free ride. I mean, you basically devoted a whole section of your book to the energy tools that form the basis of the Mastering Alchemy work. So what are these tools?
Well, that where I just explained this concept of certain and capable, that's all in the book. But don't mistake insignificant for simple, or vice versa. Because, for example, if I asked you in a way, do you know where you start and stop? Well, in real terms, you never start and stop. But in the context of your walking around physical space, you have an energy field around you that we call an aura. But do you know where it starts and stops? It is very useful to know where it starts and stops to a molecule, and it's very definable. But what happens is, and let me make it simpler, if you were to take your hand, your arm, and stick it straight out in front of you, and then turn the palm of your hand towards you, when you're sitting in present time, not worrying about the past or projecting into the future, Basically, that's where the edge of a spherical space around the body starts and stops. Now, what makes that very useful to understand is without understanding it, your life has been spent in other people's thoughts and other people's emotions. Very little of the thoughts that you think all day long belong to you. And very few of the emotions that pass through your body every second of the day, causing you to react and respond, belong to you. But when you can define the edge of the aura, and we use a very simple symbol of a red rose. And so if you were to put a red rose, just remember what a red rose looks like, and put it right where your hand is at the edge of the aura, and then take a breath and bring your attention to your side of the rose. So you be on your side of the rose and start to simply, that's you. That's all you're responsible for. You're not responsible in real terms for your kids, your husband, your wife, your mother, your father, your sisters, your brothers. They're all on their own path. But we don't know that. And so we commingle our energies in such a way we don't know who we are because we are so engaged in everybody else's stuff. So when you can begin to define this, you still can be engaging and kind and respectful and helpful and uplifting, but you do it from your space, not theirs. And you basically create this rose not as a protection or a wall or a keep out. It's a point of delineation. It says from that rose to my heart is me, and everything in that spherical space is me. And from the rose outward is simply Shakespeare's theater to entertain me. Now, doesn't that make it a lot easier? You're not responsible for what's on the other side of the rose.
Interesting. And that is a practical example of how these tools work. Very interesting.
Powerful.
I know that we are running along on time, and I want to switch gears because I want to touch upon relationships. And I know that you have a section in your book about higher relationships, but relationships seem to be a big theme right now. I mean, not just in our personal relationships with our partners and our spouses and our lovers. I mean, but all relationships, all of our relationships. So why is this?
The most challenging game on the planet is relationship 2. Now, I didn't say husband-wife. To the environment, to your work, to your boss, to others, to husbands and wives, etc. Your relationship to and your relationship with, those are two different concepts. But relationship is the most important game on the planet. And right now, you are unraveling yourself from who you are not. And so relationship becomes important because mom, dad, teacher, minister, who love you, who adore you, have said, oh, I know what's best for you, honey. This is how you will live your life. You'll hang out with these, and you won't go to that school, and you won't talk to those people, and we will go to this church, but not that one. And so you have become very entangled in relationship too. It's like playing that twister game where, people are laying all over somebody and somebody says, I gotta pee. Wait, you can't do that now because we can't get unraveled. And so in this particular space, this is a huge twister game. Your job is to get unraveled. But the purpose of the tools is to give you structure to simply allow others to be who they are while you choose to be who you are. And you can be kind and gracious and respectful and uplifting and helpful, but I'm going to remove you from my space. Your energy in my space doesn't belong to me. There's a little one-liner right in the middle of the Lord's Prayer that says, forgive them for their trespasses as I forgive me for mine. It doesn't say, well, when you get your act together, then I'll consider liking you. It just says, give them back what's theirs and take back what's yours, and then admire them. what happens is freedom. And everything, as I said at the beginning, is now about this word freedom. It's a wonderful word, but it is a very complex word when you are entangled in relationship and you've been given your freedom to be unentangled. And many get mad at you and will get mad because you're not playing the game anymore. What about? What about? And what about is not never was my problem or my intention, but I was healing you or fixing you or allowing you. But I have to own myself now. And when people begin to be who they are, you're going to find how easy it is to be in relationship. But unraveling all that we've created is the transition that we are in the moment.
Yeah, well, we are no doubt moving into a new paradigm of unconditional love. And this old theme of powerlessness is becoming obsolete. And this is, a large theme of everything you talk about, which is amazing. I know that we're moving along, we're running low on time, so I would like our viewers and our listeners to find out more about your programs and free webinars. I'd like to know, how can they find out more about you and even purchase your book?
The Mastering Alchemy or masteringalchemy.com is where you can find the work. Our business model is very specific. Give away as much as possible. And so we do. And there's archives full of lectures. There's archives full of tools and instructions on how to use them. There's many of the lectures that have been given. And every month there's 1 or 2 free lectures, and usually those are around tools or how to. Our whole intention is we're not interested in entertaining you. Well, hopefully we will be entertaining, but at the same time, this is a work in process. These are the tools that allow this ascension to come about, your freedom to come about. Is it the only path in the world? No, I don't think so. But it doesn't matter what path you work. We don't teach paths. We simply say, try this tool and see how you are doing at managing your reality. And so we teach tools, and simple to complex, but basically most of them are simple. Just know that some assembly is required, and it's very easy step by step. The book is available at masteringalchemy.com. It's also available on Amazon, and it's in Kindle and the Nook and all of those other things too.
Well, Jim, you have put out so much great information, and again, it's free. I have to tell you, though, I loved your book. The book, What Do You Mean the Third Dimension is Going Away? And I want to highly recommend that to our listeners. I really got so much out of it. I get so much out of your conversations with show on the Awakening Zone Network. And so, Jim, I'd like to know if there is some kind of closing message you'd like to share with our listeners.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Let me just add one thing about the book. We designed the book a little differently than books are. We put QR codes in them. And so as you go through the book, we describe the tools and how to do these tools, quite a few tools. But if you click on the QR code, you can access a specific page on the website that has generally a 30 to 45-minute lecture in it on the tool, how to use this tool. And so you can hear it auditorily, you can read it, but it's the tools are being taught in the book. So please take advantage of that. It's very useful tools. The message I guess I would leave is, this is not going to be necessarily an easy transition for many, because the foundation as third dimension, as shaky and as uncomfortable and as fearful as it has been, it's what we have known. I don't like it, but it's what I depend on. And so that's now gone, and we're going to find that you're going to have to make different choices, all into well-being. But the habits of how we have experienced ourselves are going to continue. It is most important, from my point of view, to look at yourself long before you look at the governments and the world and those around you, because who you are not is peeling away from you. But understand, the third dimensional reality is not conscious. Most in third dimensional reality, even though the foundation's not there, the most of the 6.5 billion people on the planet are unconscious of being unconscious. And yet, all of their stuff is now beginning to peel away because they too cannot take it on the journey. So what you're beginning to see on the positive side is this ease and freedom and choice. On the negative side, you're beginning to see people being very uncertain about what's going on, confused, even upset and angry. And you're seeing it in things like the tea parties, and you're seeing these big explosive reactions all over the world. And you're going to see more wars, and you're going to see more challenges, and the economic system is very questionable at best. And all that's got to get shifted away in order to come up with a foundation that is very stable and respectful and effortless. And that's the side of the light that is coming in. And I guarantee you the light will prevail in this experience. So the sooner you can begin to define yourself and disengage from all of the light sockets that you have your fingers in, and begin to like yourself, love yourself, appreciate yourself, go for walks in the spring, and enjoy the flowers and get into present time. In that happy space, much is going to be dissolved in your reality that you don't have to carry with you. And it's an amazing time. But understand, it's not this nirvana that some think should be happening now. It's a gift, but it's a gift that requires some assembly on each of our parts.
Brilliant message, beautiful message. And thank you so much, Jim, for joining us today. I had a great time talking to you, and this was just so full of amazing information for our listeners. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, Helene, it's my pleasure. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you.
Oh, and thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to Embracing What is Real. Again, for more information about Jim Self, look him up at www.masteringalchemy.com. Again, I'm your host, Helane Lipson, sending love, light, and blessings to all. For more information about our upcoming shows, come see me at www.insightsbyhelane.com or come visit my YouTube channel, The Helane Lipson Show, and subscribe. Till we meet again, please remember, you're a divine being, and being pure, unconditional love and light is your true nature. Namaste.